Bonjour et tout et bienvenue. That's hello and welcome everybody in French, because we're talking about Lille this week on the Super Mega Riftbound Podcast. We're also going to be talking about some city challenges, some other stuff to get you ready, not only for Atlanta this weekend, but also beyond in Unleashed. Stick around. We got some good stuff to talk about this week.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19. Like Eli said, we are back after a week's hiatus. We appreciate everyone sticking with us. We're here to talk about Lille. We have a lot to talk about. Obviously, we had a Zier win, which was on no one's radar, and we had a lot of other fun stuff to talk about there. But first, we're going to go over the last 2 weeks in Riftbound. Gail, how was your last 2 weeks in Riftbound?
My last 2 weeks were great. In preparation for Atlanta, started actually playing in paper, which is surprising and shocking. I'm realizing more and more, paper is such a big muscle memory. Oh my gosh, I cannot get through it. I was playing at a skirmish, and I channeled a singular rune and forgot to draw my card. So I had to fix it by channeling it just one rune. I remembered to do the step, just not all the way. And I had just a random card flying everywhere. So I'm really spending this week playing with cards that are not digital cards to prepare for Atlanta. And I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Eli, how about you?
Good last 2 weeks. Got to go to one event each week, which was pretty fun. Went to locals on Wednesday both times. Pretty good time. I played Tempo Ezreal, one of them, had a blast, and then I played a blue Ezreal Ari deck at the last one. I beat an Aurelia player round one. That was the matchup from hell, let me tell you. Oh my gosh, the amount of battle damage number crunching you have to do in that matchup was actually ridiculous with how much Aurelia moves and how much damage your Ezreal is doing, how much deflect you're playing, or how much deflect you're paying, because all my cards target Aurelia, and all of the actual on guard math and stuff like that, back and forth, was just a nightmare to get through. Ari hero and all that stuff, but it was fun. It was fun at least. And then I got demolished by Rune Runner my last 2 rounds, which it happens.
That's tough.
Double Master Yi in a row, 2 Master Yis in a row.
It wasn't 2 Master Yis in a row. It was Master Yi, and I think it was a Lucian, if I remember correctly. It was some other orange deck that dropped a Rune Runner on the board, and I was like, all right, well, that's curtains. I don't know what to do about that. But really good time, good community. I did notice that this last week local numbers dropped off a little bit, at least the ones I went to.
Well, I wonder why.
Yeah, I think everyone is prepping for these Unleashed pre-release season events that they're going to have to go to, because a lot of people are registered for a lot of them. I know there's a 64 player event that's already capped out in our area, so a lot of people getting ready for that.
The midnight one?
Good 2 weeks. I believe that's the midnight one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Midnight one's hype.
Yeah. Midnight one is very fun.
Then we got a 2v2 one in our area too.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I'm gonna be joining with my wife for the 2v2 one.
So Eli and I are doing it together.
Oh yeah.
Together. It should be fun. Should be fun.
Yeah.
Excited. What about you, Teddy?
My last 2 weeks, I have been kind of locked in on finishing school. At the time of airing, which probably be Friday, this week I will have 1 day left of class ever, which is next Monday. So I am very close to being done with that. Just kind of locked in on finals and stuff. But my big thing for Riftbound is I haven't been really playing in person recently, just because of final stuff. I won't be able to play until next week to start prepping for Unleashed stuff. But I did officially get into Hartford as a creator. So I will be there in that capacity, creating some awesome content with a bunch of you guys' favorite content creators. It's going to be really hype. I'm excited. Should be a fun little road trip out there, I think. The tickets go on sale tomorrow at time of recording, if I'm not mistaken, which is Tuesday for us. But you guys will listen to this at the end of the week. And Hartford tickets go on sale tomorrow. So yeah, should be a good...
Tomorrow. Oh,
I think it's tomorrow. I could be wrong.
No. I've totally forgot. I'm gonna have to put it on my calendar to remember.
I think it's tomorrow. That sounds right.
That's the only NA one that I'll be missing.
So because you're gonna be on a cruise, you said.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we're gonna be on a cruise.
Very fun.
I feel like that's a good reason to miss.
Yeah, I could technically swing it if I wanted to leave for Connecticut the day the cruise ends. But I don't think I want to do that.
Gotta be careful. Yeah, gotta be careful. You're gonna be lazed up on a cruise and then trying to go into a super competitive.
And then just go.
Fun sidebar, actually.
Okay.
So,
Oh, no.
you guys probably have not heard this story, but there might be some in the audience that are a bit familiar with it. There were 2 Magic the Gathering professionals that went on a cruise prior to a Pro Tour. So Pro Tour is like the height of Magic, right?
Yep.
Where the professional play happens. So they were completely isolated and only had each other to test against. And so they tested against each other for this Pro Tour. And the meta that evolved between them was entirely separate than the meta that evolved off of the cruise ship. And so by the time they were done with the cruise ship, both of them ended up placing in the Pro Tour, and one of them won the Pro Tour because their meta internally was so much different from the meta that everyone else knew that nobody was prepped for their deck at all. And so it was kind of a like isolation thing, and it's been a story of the Magic the Gathering community for years. But yeah, pretty fun.
That's pretty
so
cool.
Gail, just you and your wife can test on the cruise ship.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, when you get off, go straight to Hartford. You got it.
Yeah, I'm excited for the food out there. I will say that. I'm excited. I'm going to Hartford in June, and then I'm going good seafood out there.
So my reference point for the East Coast is Maryland and Maine.
Yeah.
And both of those places, oh my gosh, the seafood is just absolutely stellar. Connecticut is close enough that they probably get it a lot fresher than where we are, right? So I'm just excited to get anything in Connecticut.
Boston. I'm also going to Boston for baseball. I'm going to Fenway in September, and that I'm so excited to eat in the harbor and just get some good Boston food there. That's
okay. Hot lobster rolls is their food.
Okay.
According to Google.
Oh, it's right below Massachusetts. I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out where Connecticut is currently.
Okay.
Next episode, geography test with Gail.
No, don't do that one. Don't do that one.
You give us epithets.
You give us epithets.
Okay. I see.
To find out where all.
So yeah, I'll eat some hot lobster rolls all day. I'm all about that.
Yeah,
I feel like we're gonna find some good food out there. But anyways, we're here to talk about Riftbound, not lobsters. But we do have scuttle crab. No, it's a crab.
Yeah, it's a crab.
Not lobster. It's a crab. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a lobster in Riftbound.
That's for Maryland, not for Connecticut.
But anyways, moving on to Lille discussion. First, we're gonna talk about kind of the metagame and how this shaped out. I have I guess whenever the Riftbound releases their metagame, they have 2 different pages. I just have page 1 for both of them, just because kind of page 2, especially for day 1. Yeah, you obviously had. I think we had a good representation, if I'm not mistaken. Going into day 2, we had just 3 legends that were knocked out fully that didn't make day 2. Where the best ofs were decided after that, but other than that, some best ofs were decided, but we still had some get into day 2. But this is day 1 metagame. Very kind of even split at the top. Aurelia was the most popular at 15%, Draven at 13%, and then Kaisa at 11%. Yeah, just curious to know your guys' thoughts. Gail, I know you tweeted about Yasuo being on the front page of popularity. So what are your guys' thoughts on the Lille meta day 1 before we focus on day 2?
The Lille meta in general looked pretty similar to what I would have expected. The big things that stood out to me were Sivir being the last one was very surprising to me. I think that deck is still fine in both Aurora and mid-range versions. I think that deck is very solid. It's shocking to me that she was as low as she was. I think it's just an issue of the deck archetype changed and people didn't know what to do with her past that. Whereas Draven, the archetype didn't really change. People just kept with the same idea. But Sivir had to change entirely to be able to accommodate it. So I think maybe that's where that was at. But past that, everything looked pretty normal to me. I think Kaisa's win rates at day 1 were a little bit lower than what I would expect. But generally, the popularity seemed pretty normal.
Yeah.
Well, I think Kaisa might have fallen victim to a couple of the decks that we're going to talk about later that made top 8 that just have generally pretty good Kaisa matchups. And I think that those players were definitely gunning for that Kaisa matchup, which makes sense, right? Kaisa was expected to be pretty good going into the weekend. People were still on the Draven train, of course, after the results that we saw in Australia. I know you weren't, Gail. I wasn't really either myself, but a lot of people still liked that deck. And then I know that just in general with these statistics, there were a couple things that surprised me at the bottom as well. But I think that we are now enough events into the game's history that we can see that people really are going after these metal cards very consistently, but it's not enough that it's like spinning the needle down from the top. But what it does do is create metagame variety and makes the top decks have to work harder to actually achieve their goal of getting top 8 or doing incredibly well at the tournament, because there's a lot of matchups in the game that like top deck can have a matchup and a good matchup at a lot of top decks, but get sniped by a lower tier deck, and your odds of running into that lower tier deck are much higher because everyone's going for these middle cards, right?
For sure.
And so that creates a really cool balance where you kind of have to be prepared for the entire field of legends
And the tops.
and the top, exactly. And so that is a very difficult metagame to parse at the top level, and that's why you're going to see players consistently doing well, like we see with Prismaticism making another top 8 here. When you have that ability to go through and look at all of the decks and really understand the game on that level, that is going to consistently carry you towards the top of the leaderboards, which is what you want in a skill-based card game like this.
Yeah.
So I think that is a really cool aspect that we have going, and I'm hoping that we continue that at the next events. We'll see what happens in Atlanta this weekend.
Yeah, I think it tends to make metas a little bit flatter in the way that like decks are constructed to play to their strategy way more often than playing to beat strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that can be pretty good for the game too, because then at least every deck is feeling like it's doing something that it's wanting to do, rather than having to build a deck that's anti to what you would expect just because it is countering whatever the top 3 are.
I think that was kind of the issue in somewhat when we had Draven still around with Call Shot, is people were teching in stuff that would be able to handle that matchup better. But like you said, Gil, now this creates more of a flatter meta that and as this game grows, I think you'll see that disparity with like how many legends are being played. Like what we add 12 new legends, is it, I believe, next set, 12 or 9 new legends next
12.
set. 12, okay. That are going to make this even bigger. And by the time rotation hits in 2028, we'll have like 40 more legends. Like we're gonna have over it's gonna be close to 100 legends. I don't know the exact math there, but we'll be close to 100 legends before rotation hits. The people going for best ofs, and I think that's just gonna to imagine that is kind of crazy. But I also think with them getting rid of best ofs in after 3 sets, that will also help taper this a little bit to where people may not be going for I know T. Thibodeau, who is going after, I hope that's how I say his name right. I could be wrong on that. But he's going after Garen pretty much every single event. And when that rotates and you can't get a best of, you'll see those players switch off of those because they're not going to want to get the best of, and they're going to try for new best of, or they're just going to try for the better card. So I think that's something to keep eye on, and it's just how is that going to change as time goes on?
That's also very interesting to me, that specific point, Teddy, because we're going to see legends. So Draven, right? Draven's legend ability is broken. Everybody knows this.
Very good.
Draven could get a card, say 6 sets from now, that just absolutely makes the best deck in the format again. Drop of a hat, best deck.
Mm-hmm.
Draven's already rotated out of legends.
Mm-hmm.
Are people going to play Draven, the best deck in the format?
Yeah.
When they're not incentivized, they will not get a best of, even if they are the best performing Draven. All they can play for is top 8. And when we have things like are happening in Lille, when we have 12-2 records, not even making top 8, or not making a top cut, right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? That's a very interesting concept to me. I'm incredibly interested in how that's going to shake out, because you really have to say, yeah, you really have to say that you are the best player in the room that day. I'm going to win the tournament, or it's not worth playing that champion. Super interesting concept to me.
Yeah, I think it'll be scary. I think the bigger question there is that they won't even get explored at all.
100%. Yeah,
where
definitely.
most people are building for money evaluation, right? And that's at the end of the day, that's what people are doing. Until we get into tournaments like nationals or worlds, maybe those prize structures will be better to incentivize playing best deck rather than playing metal. Obviously, we still have high prizes for getting first in a tournament, but we have high prizes for getting first and not high prizes for getting second.
Yeah. Which I think it comes down to the fact, when those legends start to rotate, when we have set 1 rotate, when set 4 comes out, are we going to see them implement top 8 cards, top 64 cards? I feel like we can get promos that they've already introduced the Stamp Champion promo for skirmishes. why not take one of these promos that is for these events and put a stamp on it and say top 64, top 32, top 16, top 8, top 4 champion. And then that obviously that stamp equates to, is this good? And something I'll like Lorcana does is they have different promos for each of those. Do they have different cards to where you have this like one of for the winner that this is your card. There's no one else has this. And then you also get the top 8 card. You also get the top 16 card. And you keep building this up. I think that would be a great way to kind of equate it to where people will still consider these best decks if they are still rotated out of the best stuff. But we'll see.
I'm gonna push back against that just a little bit,
Okay.
and not because I think the point is bad. I think that point is very solid. I think we do need top 64 promos, or something, right? Just something, because right now it's just the invite, right? You're just getting the invite. It would be cool to get like a top 64 playmat. Even that would be good. Just something for those players. But my pushback is, I think that this is calculated. I think that this is a calculated decision on the part of Riot, because something that happens in card games is that oftentimes you need ban lists, right? You need ban lists, or you need something that is going to refresh the metagame for you and make it so that metagame is going to move on and people will buy your new cards. This is just a natural way for that to happen. As leaders get rotated out of best of, they're not going to be considered as much. They might get still played on the local level and skirmish level, which is what you want, right? You still want those leaders, people who have bought into those leaders, still be able to use them. But on a more high OPL level, you're not really going to see those leaders anymore, or those legends anymore. And I think that is by design, because it is a natural progression point. Standard doesn't end, or we're not going to get a standard format where there's actual rotation until 2028. So the way to create variety in the format is by having people play the new legends as they come out. And people are going to play the new legends because they're incentivized to do so by the best of prize card system. And while that system is kind of anti-consumer-ish because you have to buy all the new product, you have to buy all the new product anyway. So it doesn't matter, because if you want to compete at any level, you're going to they're going to continue to make you buy the new product. That's how card games function. That's how card games have always functioned.
Yeah.
And they know that from a card design perspective. So I think that this is just a way to kind of cycle and refresh the metagame that is not a banned list, which we did sorely need. Hopefully we will need less of in the future, but it's a way to cycle the metagame while still being in that one standard blocked format. And I think that's really cool. I think this is a very cool way that they have done this. And I think one of my favorite ways a company has done this, because people can still play with their cards. They're just not incentivized to bring them to big events.
Yeah, that's fair.
Moving on, this is the meta day 2 conversion rates. We saw a lot of decks be around this 22 to 29, I think is the biggest conversion rate. The biggest one was Draven at 29%, followed by the Relay at 28. Then we had Annie at 26, Darius at 24, and then Azir, Master Yi, and Kaisa all at 22, and everything else was under 20%. Obviously, we know that Azir won, and it had a good good conversion rate. It only had 11 decks get through to day 2. And then we have obviously the big guns still, but comparing this obviously to when Draven was popular and Miracle was a thing, it's a more healthy conversion rate to day 2. But curious to know your guys' thoughts on here. Nothing like, obviously Azir winning surprised us all, but honestly nothing here really particularly surprises me in day 2 conversion rate. I'm not like blown away by any of these numbers.
I'm still pretty surprised at Irelia and Draven being as high as they are. For me, those two decks took massive hits. So it is confusing to me that they are as high as they are. They're obviously still like fine decks, but that big of a hit into this change of a meta seems like they should not have been converting as high as what they are here. It could just be familiarity. It could still be the fact that like Irelia is very difficult to play against. Like playing against these two decks is very obnoxious for players of average to even average high skill. So I think that could be contributing a bit to it. But to me, I did not feel like these decks should have that conversion rate that they ended up having. And Kai'Sa's the same thing, where her conversion rate's pretty low comparatively to what I expect her to be at, because I think her playing into these decks is a lot different than what people are used to playing. So there is some... The conversion rate stats show you generally more about average than they do about highest. So I don't think conversion rates you should not look at if you're looking to predict who is going to win the next tournament, for example, because that's just not the best use of that stat. I think you can use those to best figure out what you'll be playing against as you go through a tournament, but not necessarily using that to really determine what is the strong decks at the moment.
If you're planning on making a deep tournament run, looking at conversion stats is usually a great way to parse and prepare yourself for the later stages of that tournament.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you'll kind of know what you're going to play into. So people will deck build differently. Like if I'm going to a local skirmish that I know is going to be 4 rounds, I'm going to bring Hook Darius and be like, all right, I'm going to roll higher, I'm going to roll low. It's fine. It's whatever. But if I'm trying to make a deep tournament run in a 14-round tournament, you can't really do that. So you need to know what you're going to be playing against later in the tournament, and you need to have a plan for what you're going to be playing against later in the tournament. And those conversion stats are very good for that specific type of preparation, at least in my experience. I will say with these specific stats, there were some that surprised me, but I don't think any that were like super out of the radar for me. Draven is just such a broken legend that it does not matter. Like when Draven is still converting at this percentage, right? After we've made these huge sweeping hits to the deck, that just tells you how nutty insane the deck was before these hits occurred, right? True. That it's still converting at this level. So it's good hits. It's very good hits. It opened up the metagame completely. Wonderful. But Draven is still a good deck. It will still be a good deck. Aurelia was actually also surprising to me. I didn't think Aurelia was going to do as good as it has. That's okay. Like you said, familiarity is a big part of it. Late stage tournaments. A lot of players that were trying to win tournaments in the past meta were playing Aurelia. And so when you have a lot of experience on the deck and are wanting to go deep in a tournament, you're probably going to want to bring your comfort. That's usually just how it is. Yeah. That's actually a thing that they took from League of Legends and put into this game incredibly well. Is like, man, you're probably better at your comfort champion than you are at this random deck you're going to pick up. Yeah. Which has converted from League of Legends to the game, which is pretty fun. But yeah, so nothing super surprising to me. I think that the thing that I will point out is that Darius has a good conversion rate at every single tournament it plays. Just putting it out there. It has not had a low conversion rate at any tournament that it's played at. So
yeah,
just a little bit of a observation. Teddy, what about you? What do you think?
Like I said, I don't really like. Obviously, I think now that I'm like thinking about it, I think I definitely expected Aurelia to be a little lower. But I still expected Draven to be up there just because the legend is so good. I think as long as that is played, that legend is going to have an impact on the meta. I don't know. My thoughts on Kaisen Mastery, obviously, with that matchup was a little interesting. But other than that, like everything else seemed pretty appropriate. Fiora snuck into top 8, if I'm not mistaken, with one of the 8 copies, right? That sounds right. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Maybe I'm thinking of this. I'm thinking of city challenges. Don't ignore.
Yeah, I don't
city
think
challenges.
Fiora made top 8 of Lille.
Because but other than that, nothing really surprised me. I'm pretty content with how this turned out. I'm curious to know kind of your guys' thoughts before we move on to deck lists. What does this mean for Atlanta? Do you guys think we'll see a mirror image of this, or are we going to see a little bit difference in what is played there?
I think people historically have been pretty slow to change. I don't think this will actually change deck lists too much. At most, we'll see a person go from 1 to 2 copies of Thermo Beam is really the most that will happen. I know I've had to practice a bit more into Yi recently because of his prevalence. That was a matchup that I'm just like saying, yeah, it's a bad matchup, but I'm not going to worry about it. Now I have to worry about it because his popularity was a little bit higher than I expected. So now like practicing lines gets a little bit more, but I don't know how much it will change people's decks. I don't think it'll change them that much. Again, maybe like 2 to 3 cards. I've changed 2 to 3 cards of my deck based on Lil. I would be shocked to see that number be higher for some people. And I think if it is higher, I think those people are probably overreacting a bit too much.
I mean, we've talked about it before, like that we have like the weird like threshold. You have the top end players that aren't going to really change. You have like, and there's like the sandwich. You have the low end that isn't going to change much, and you have the middle that's going to change a ton, or could change a ton. I think we talked about this with Bologna and Vegas.
Yeah.
At the start of the set, so it'll be interesting to see. But like I think, like you said, like the top end players are not going to change much at all.
It's hard, right? This event is 1 week before Atlanta. If this was a longer stretch of time, I think we might see a lot more adaptation. But 1 week, usually card game players, and again, this is in my experience, are in 2 games. They are either the I've put 150 hours of practice into this one deck in the last 3 days. I'm going to, yes, that mathematically works. Don't question it.
I'm not.
Yes, I put 150 hours into this. I know my card choices are good. I'll explore this new card. If it doesn't hit it, it doesn't hit it. I'm going to play my deck list. And then you have the people that are like, oh my God, I'm going to change my deck list right now. Immediately. I need to be on top of the bed. I need everything to happen. I'm going to change my deck list in the hotel room. I'm going to re-sleeve it 4 times just to make sure the sleeves are right. Like that kind of card game player. And so with these two camps, generally, you're going to see players inhabit one of them. And most of the time, it doesn't matter. It actually just doesn't matter. The good players are going to be playing their deck to a level that is high. The medium players can be playing their deck to a level that's medium, and the low players can be playing their decks to a low level, right? That does not impact things too much. It's really just quality of play. And we're going to see those top tier players come out on top the majority of the time, regardless of the card choices that they changed in their deck or didn't change in their deck. You definitely should be staying on top of the meta. You definitely should be making changes if those changes are warranted.
Yeah.
However, most of the time, you can just play the deck list that you have put that practice and hours into. Play it well, and you will succeed.
Yeah. I generally sit in that first camp, and I'm pushing myself a bit more for Atlanta by not having practiced too much of this because I've been focusing more on set 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go into this with a lot less practice than I'm used to, where like I don't have the 48 cards of every deck memorized going into Atlanta, mainly because like this meta is so wide that doing that's basically impossible to begin with. So I'm like going complete opposite direction of how I normally prepare, and I'm just going to go vibe it. I have changed a few decks based off the representation from Lille, and I'm just going to show up, and I'm just going to fully lock into the game itself and just play as best as I can and see what that does for me. And if I fail, that's not my status. That's not my way to play, and that's okay.
Well, I think also
it's experimentation.
Yeah.
With something like this, I feel like if you have a solid, which I know you do, you have a solid knowledge base of cards that could be in every deck, and you know what you're going to have to play in when you come into contact with pretty much any deck. And I think that also can work sometimes, but it's not always going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's very radical because there are some cards like if this card exists in their deck, I have to make this play now or I will lose to it later, like in 3 turns even sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you know the opponent has Camel in their deck, you have to be playing in such a way that you are winning the game before the Camel comes down. You can't give them space to play it. So it's yes and no, right? Like it's much better to know the cards that are in their deck than the cards that are in their pool. And I think that's, just a general truth to have with everything. Yeah. But I think it's what will make Atlanta and Lille even much harder because people are playing some random cards.
Yeah, you say random, right? But a lot of it is a calculated random. Some of these players that are instituting their deck lists because they know that the top players are going to have deck lists memorized or have like a quality of card. Like let's say Annie with Prismat, for example. At Lille.
Yeah,
he's playing Rengar in his Annie deck. A lot of people play Rengar and Annie. That is a card that is a known quantity when you are going against an Annie. You can expect that they could have Rengar.
Yeah,
right. Now, if I'm going against an Annie, I'm not going to expect that they have Disintegrate in their deck list.
No,
I'm just not going to expect that. Yeah, that's not on my radar. I'm not going to expect that to be a piece of interaction that they have. And I think that is a bad piece of interaction for them to have. And so we're at the top level. I'm not expecting my opponent to have that. They smack me with a Disintegrate. I stare at my cards and say, okay, good game. You've got this one. At the top level, surprises are really, really valuable because everybody is so locked into everything that even one permutation can really throw things off. And having closed deck lists makes that possible.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something to keep an eye on for people that are going out. Sometimes there are cards that are underrated or underplayed that you think might fit into a deck list. Sometimes they still can be includes just for that surprise factor that they can bring in.
The 3 cards that I changed in my deck, I got rid of 3 and then added 3 surprises. I just put in 3 random cards.
And sometimes that is a way to deck build. And especially will work against good players that are not expecting those cards because they have a game plan. They know how they want to play each matchup. They're not expecting to have that card. Now, on the other end, it can actually hurt you in lower tier matchups where it doesn't really matter if you have that card in that matchup at all. Like they're just going to play their deck and their strategy, and it's going to work or it's not going to work. And so if you have underrate cards or cards that don't perform as well generally, sometimes they're not as impactful in those lower tier matchups where they're just playing their deck. They're not playing their mind game, they're playing their strategy. And so that oftentimes can be the catch-22 of playing it. But if you can get into the top of the tournament with some weird choices, you will definitely catch some people off guard.
Yeah. So speaking of deck lists and kind of things that may not be included that you may not think, let's take a look at the top 5 deck lists from Lille. We'll have Azir, Master Yi, Draven, Annie, and then the top placing Aurelia. Starting with Azir, this is kind of just your run-of-the-mill Azir list with a Facebreaker Splash. We just talked about this. And I think there wasn't like much here that's like, oh, that's like, it's just crazy that this won, I think is what people were stunned by. But you can also kind of understand why it won when you really saw him play it out. Pedro was great at what he did. He knew his lines. He knew what he was doing every single time. There are so many moments like where I'm like, okay, there's no way he's winning this. And then he would come out and be able to pull it out. So thoughts on Azir, thoughts on Pedro's run?
I think Pedro looks like one of the most dominating players we've seen at a regional. The way that he played and everything that he did looked very clean, very solid, and very confident. There was like one play out of the entire time that I was watching him that like I disagreed with him on, but then like 3 turns later it came like up as to like why he chose that. I think you know, both have their merits, but like 3 turns later I saw what he saw 3 turns ago. So I was like, that's really cool to see that too. And I know that Pedro had a little bit of a drama at Lille. For those who are unaware, in one of his streamed games, he played Death Grip, targeting one of his units with a GA on it, and allowed the might to transfer to the other unit. He asked the judge says that's how that works, and so they went with that play. That is not how the card is played, but I just want to point out that for these events, judges can get things wrong. Pedro asked the judge in this case. The judge gave him a clear affirmative answer, and then they went with the play.
Yeah,
I'm not
going to knock Pedro for that. But that was absolutely an angle shoot.
That's like, my point here. This is not on Pedro. This is not a Pedro issue here. This was on the judge. Should he know this interaction? Probably. But at the end of the day, he asked the judge gave the answer, and that's what it went with. So I don't think this should be an issue that people are, you know, having a cow about.
It definitely was angle shooting. Like, let's not get it twisted. Pedro knew that interaction. Point blank period. Pedro knew that the level that he was playing this deck at, he knew that how Death Grip interacted in this deck 100%. I don't even think that's refutable, because when you saw his gameplay, you saw how confident he was in everything, how much he knew how every single piece in his deck worked. I play Azir, right? He was doing flawless Azir play throughout all of the matches that we saw him in. It was angle shooting because he knew the interaction and he still called the judge. However, that aside, he is a competitive player. Competitive players are always going to defer to a judge because the judge has the chance of getting it wrong. I'm not putting that on Pedro. It is the judge's fault for not knowing that interaction. His opponent also should have appealed to the head judge, to be totally fair. However, it's a table judge in a streamed match, so that's kind of difficult. But that is an interaction that had an FAQ that is a known interaction for every Azir player, especially someone playing at his level. So
I think that argument could work in the world where we had consistent rules. In the world that we don't have consistent rules, I can absolutely expect you popping up to a tournament and they rule something completely different because of what one rioter said a day ago. And that's just the reality of this game and its rulings, that this is entirely possible. You can show up to an event and you can be ruled opposite of what you have played and practiced and been told is correct for weeks and weeks.
Because he could have had this come up like the day before, and he probably played in the pre Rift event and maybe got ruled differently. He asked again, and then he asked again, or it like happened earlier in the day and it wasn't on stream. Like, I think there's 2 sides of this coin. Is like, was this angle shooting, or was this he got told one thing one day and then the other thing the other day? And I think, like you said, Gail, it's just that it's an issue with this game is how like complex these rules are and how you can manipulate the rules to your favor sometimes. And you just like, that's just what this game is. And until they can really get like the rules honed in on how exact everything is, and if we can get judges that know these things, then we won't really like have an answer to all of this yet.
Yeah. On the deck list itself, however, the most interesting thing about this deck list is how there is 0 sauce in it at all. There's absolutely no surprising
Facebreaker
factor.
sauce. Facebreaker's a little bit of sauce.
I've seen Facebreaker played in Azir for
Facebreaker
so
is the
long.
most mild sauce in the world.
I've seen
It's
I've
very
seen
mild
Facebreaker
sauce.
in Azir lists for a while.
I've seen Facebreaker in the board. I haven't seen it in the main deck. This is the first time I
Sure.
saw it in the main deck that was impactful. On Guard too isn't actually usually a present card in the Azir deck list we've seen top.
I feel like Facebreaker, it makes a little sense just with how much, like, obviously you have Draven and has cards that can get out really quickly. Aurelia is able to ready, and then you also have Kai'Sa, which has Kai'Sa and Darius. So I understand it a little bit in that sense. Like those three decks.
It's a good card.
It's a hidden card.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's a
I
good
understand.
card,
Yeah. But when you think about the top echelon of decks that were obviously we saw a lot of representation, it makes sense to just be able to have that to be able to do a combat trick when you need it in those matchups.
Yeah. But the main point here about the lack of sauce in the deck is just how playing a deck that you know and playing the deck solidly matters more than having a meta read, which is what we were talking about earlier as well. Was Azir particularly stationed in this meta? I don't necessarily think so. I think he played the deck immaculately and had one of the highest win rates that we've ever seen at a regional as well. It was like 80. He was north of 80% win rate, and that is the highest we've ever seen from a regional. And I don't think that has anything to do with the deck construction itself necessarily. I think that is all going down to plays and play lines, which I think is very exciting to see if you want to be good at the game.
Yeah, it's very exciting to see. I completely agree. And one thing I did want to note, there's 15 equipment in this deck. That is actually on the low side for Azir lists that I've seen. A lot of them are on 16 to 18. So running 15 equipment, he was very confident is what that means. He was very confident in exactly what he wanted to do every turn. The deck was constructed to do that, and it did. Yeah, did just that, which is fantastic. I love these Azir decks with no units. I think playing units in Azir is completely trolling. Just play your equipments, play your Desert's Calls. They're your units when you need them. Play your Azir tokens. It was really good. He did an excellent job. And to clarify on my earlier point, I'm not blaming him for angle shooting. Like I said, top players are going to angle shoot. That is what they do. However, he played awesome. He played great the entire day. It was very visible that he was an excellent player on the deck. And that is amazing. Congrats to him for winning the tournament.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We have Master Yi next. Not the Aurora variant, but we still see Master Yi come out, get second. I believe we had 2 in top cut or top 8. So I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts here on Master Yi.
Sorry, set 1 called. What is this white flame protected doing? Yeah, the Yi decks are always so weird. They only run 1 2-drop, which is just bizarre for a deck that really wants to get the tempo. I know they're like, well, we'll get the tempo back with Trinity Force. I'm like, that works sometimes. Oh, they got Desert's Call. Sorry, I missed.
Yeah, they have 6.
Call.
Yeah, they
got
6.
6. 6 is a much better number.
Yep.
But then we also got this Find Your Center. I don't know. I think Yi decks are just so bad looking, but then they just put down a camel with a Trinity on it. It's like, okay, now a lot of decks are struggling to interact with it, and that's really the point.
Struggling to interact looks like the entire motto of this Yi deck list, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
We've got the Navori Scout in there too, right? Where you're going to have to play the elusive call or the elusive. Hello, what game am I playing? You're going to have to play the deflect cost.
Well, it is elusive in lore. Maybe
it is elusive. You're right.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So Navori Scout makes a lot of sense in this deck list. You're just trying to stack Trinity Force on your mid-range creatures and hold some battlefields. Desert's Call was a huge get for all of these green decks. It was a absolutely massive card to get released for all of these green decks. You're going to see it at 3 in most green deck lists just because it is wonderful to have those 2 bodies for 4, have the modality of not missing your 2-drop or being able to spread that out and have a 4-drop to get 2 bodies on, especially in a gear deck where you need a body to stick around to equip your gear to a lot of the time. It's very impactful. So pretty cool deck list. See, once again, our little shepherd up there. Only 2 copies in this deck list, but drawing cards is pretty good in Master Yi specifically as well. You need at least a little bit of sustain because you do not have a lot of it. Fey Folk at 1 as well, a little bit more of that. I think the deck list looks pretty solid. Master Yi player obviously knew what they were doing, piloting it to second place. So
Right, next is our top placing Draven. We see not Audacious. We see Showboat get the legend spot, which I think I'm very interested to see like what the split on Draven decks was Audacious versus Showboat. I think that could definitely be something interesting to talk about comparatively there. But again, Draven just doing its thing, having all of these cards with you have your nice purple interaction spells to be able to move things around. You still have stacked with draws, cleaves. We see 2 falling stars. We see some Vexes in the sideboard for those matchups that is needed for. But other than that, the Rek'Sai, I think, is the biggest thing to highlight here. But also, it makes sense when you think about what Draven is trying to do. So thoughts on Draven here for you guys?
The Rek'Sai just adds more to that mid-turn where Vanquisher was sort of holding the deck together on. Rek'Sai needed to be added just to sort of fill that turn. So it makes sense to be added there. Everything else here is pretty much exactly as what we've seen before. We've added a few more tricks with Cleave. Some didn't run Cleave, some were running Cleave. This one is running Cleave. That's good. We've also added in a Ride the Wind back in, which was always an off and on card for Draven. But with the newer version, it seems like Ride the Wind has become a bit more important because, of course, there's no FOF or tricks or anything like that. So Ride the Wind sort of takes that spot as a new sort of blowout card. Very solid, good stuff. The most interesting thing in this list to me is the 3 beasts. Is it 3 or 1? So 1 beast inside. That's probably the most surprising thing to me, and I think that is just meant for extra assurance into other Forerunners to be able to bounce Forerunner and do stuff with that, because Forerunner is a very meta-defining card at the moment. How you deal with that
pivotal card in the matchup too.
Yeah, very very good card in the matchup. So I think the Beast Blow is just to be like the 4th rebuke in this deck. That's how I would look at this card.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a repeatable rebuke with the last rights as well. So you can board in the last rights with the Beast Below. And then because you have Draven Showboat. You have Draven Showboat, right?
In Fantasy Dream World, maybe we've done that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure. But so 5th rebuke, there you go. However, I will say the thing that's interesting most to me about this is that we've added an Aspirant's Climb as our battlefield choice in the battlefields. I thought that was super interesting, and I think it makes sense because you're wanting to just get a little bit of extra insurance, let you get that extra point, let you maybe draw an additional 1 to 2 cards a game of like extra bought time with that extra point, and sometimes that can be the difference in Draven. I also really like the Rek'Sai. I've been toying around with Rek'Sai in red decks for quite a while. I actually had it in my Darius list for set 2 before the set came out, and it stayed there. I think that card is really cool. And especially it letting you accelerate Draven Showboat from your champion zone as well is impactful in the late game. If you can stick a Rek'Sai and then shove in this huge Draven that's like 8 or 9 might, that's a lot of might to come into a battlefield and swing, especially if you're adding a cleave or something on top of it. So I could definitely see the inclusion of Rek'Sai. I like it a lot in this list. 1 Bryn here in the main board. That's pretty standard for Draven. And then you talked about it, but this Ferris Forerunner is just the meta-defining card at the moment. It is, I think, the best card of set 2 in this post-Draven format.
All right. So finally, we have one more after this. We have Annie. This is Prismat's deck. Again, Prismat always being super consistent with these top 8s. Again, he loves his Annie. We saw the Rengar in here. We see the Rek'Sai also in here. Kind of looks similar to Draven in a way, but also doing Annie things with getting those runes up to leave open some interaction. Thoughts here, guys? Not super surprising to see Prismat here. He's just consistently done this. Obviously, Annie is the one deck that he is known for. So he's known for other things too. But Annie is his pride and joy. So thoughts?
Yeah, I think this, with the nerf to FOF and getting rid of Vanquisher, Annie sort of starts sliding into the same deck archetype as Draven. There was talk at the beginning of the set that Annie was just better than Draven, putting in all the same cards anyway. So this is sort of taking that idea to a regional, right? And I think it looks pretty similar, pretty fine. Between Draven and Annie, I like Annie more, personally. I think having 2 runes up is a bit more impactful than drawing that card, I guess, especially against players that know how to play around that card. I think the ability for that to matter more than having more reach in a deck with the extra runes matters a bit more. So for me, I'm a bigger fan of Annie than Draven with all the same cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that it was brought. I think we will see more thermo beams going up in the deck probably just because of Azir and Yi. Both of those running like Trinity and GAs, getting able to hit multiple of those is very solid. But yeah, I think this deck looks good. This would be my preferred red purple.
Yep, a really interesting deck. Think it hits a lot of the same notes we're talking about Draven. The one big difference between Draven and Annie is that Annie runs Flash, right? So Flash will change your early game patterns a lot, where Draven does not have the ability to change those patterns. So it provides a little bit of pivot to the deck that Draven doesn't have in the early game, and in turn makes the deck play a little bit more aggressively, especially since Prismat has put in these traveling merchants as the 2-drop of choice. So deck plays a bit more aggressive than the Draven deck does, and we see that obviously playing the Arena's Greatest instead of the Aspirin's Climb in the battlefield zone. And that could benefit it a lot. I mean, you guys know I'm much bigger on aggressive decks than I am anything else, and this definitely scratches the itch of a good aggressive deck that kind of maxes out at the Ferris Forerunner slot. Obviously Mindspitter's in there, but usually maxing out at Ferris Forerunner and just trying to win in a really early game focused fashion. So good deck. Prismat's a great player, obviously, so we'll see if these results continue from him.
And finally, we have the top placing Aurelia deck. This was one of 3 Aurelia decks in Top Cut. Obviously, the biggest thing is seeing those Finder Centers being added into Aurelia. But other than that, kind of the focus here, having that one Fizz in the main board, I think is interesting, but also it really makes sense to get those spells back when you need them. Gail, you're our resident Aurelia expert. Thoughts on this?
This is just the standard list without Fofs. I still believe that the aggro one's probably better into this format that we're looking at, but I'm a bit biased on that. The big things that this one's adding in is also Desert's Call and Fizz. Being able to play the Desert's Call and Fizz really helps the yellow matchup for Aurelia. Being able to just have 3 bodies sometimes on the board there is a lot of coal insurance. So it's very solid there. Overall, nothing super surprising in this list. I really hate Finder Centers. I hated this card.
I hate that card too.
This card is the most do nothing card I have made my
completely
eyes on.
Completely
And
correct.
I hate seeing it in the Irelia lists, but
I hate seeing it in every list.
I hate seeing it.
I don't care
too,
what
me
list it
too.
is, Gail.
I hate this card.
It,
But
it makes sense in Aurora, and then does it make
No,
sense?
it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense.
It makes sense, but then it doesn't make sense at the same time. It's so interesting.
I hate seeing this card, but everything else looks pretty standard, pretty
People just see
normal
the
for Aurelia.
draw, and they're just like, oh yeah. This is
Well,
good.
in Aurelia, like I'll give it the credit that like you're going to be behind in most early games, so like you're normally going to be casting it for 1 on your comeback, but it's just so like
Great.
blasé, terrible. I'd never want to cast that card rather than do other things in my hand the large majority of the time. So
hate it so much.
Right there with you.
There were a lot of Aurelias that were cutting Rebuke in main as well for some reason. So it's good to see if this one has it in main. Because that's a bizarre
Forerunner.
It's a bizarre decision to not have the Rebuke in main. Having 3 in main's a bit even more than what I usually see people doing. It's like 2 in main and 1 inside. So 3 in main, solid. I like seeing that.
Yeah.
Generally solid standard Aurelia.
Yeah, nothing much here. But those were everything with Lille. Any last thoughts about what this means for Atlanta, or we've kind of hit on it. We're kind of expecting the same next week or this coming weekend.
Yeah, well, I doubt it would be very different.
Yeah, more or less. I think that Victor's going to have a big fall off.
Yes. Victor was the one thing that his conversion rates was awful. As it always seems to be.
The thing is, Victor's conversion rate is always terrible. That's
what I'm
been
saying.
Terrible. Yeah. And so with it having such a poor conversion rate, we still saw the top couple of Victor, like Ghoster Driver was at the event and he was at the top of the Victor leaderboard, right?
Yep.
So I think that's more a skill thing and maybe a deck thing than Victor itself. Because Victor is deceptively difficult to pilot. A lot of newer players or players that are stepping kind of into the game at a cheaper price point will pick up Victor and just not pilot it incredibly efficiently. And that could definitely skew those numbers. But I can't keep saying that forever, right? At some point, it's got to start converting because people have got to start playing it at a higher level. So I would expect that we're going to see less Victor at Atlanta, which probably an okay thing with Ferris Forerunner being so prevalent in the meta.
Yeah.
Sometimes Ferris Forerunner can just feel like Exodia, or Rune Runner can just feel like Exodia, where they sit on the board and you're like, all right, well, unless I have specifically Imperial Decree into Rune Runner, or unless I have specifically scooping my cards up and leaving the table into Ferris Forerunner, game is just over. It's hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all from these RCQs. Obviously, Gail, you'll be in Atlanta this week competing.
Yep.
But before we move on to our last one, Gail, what time?
We have an epithet quiz
and a geography quiz. Just kidding.
Oh no.
No, we don't.
Now we go into the epithet quiz. We have again easy, medium, and hard. So we're going to start with the easiest one that you guys will ever get. Trifarian.
Oh. Yes.
War Camp.
Oh.
Yes, you got it, Eli. Proud of you.
Wait, was it actually that?
No.
It's Darius.
Yeah,
Trifarian.
Darius. That's what I said. Okay, that's what I said.
Red
first.
Darius.
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
The next one I've also given to you guys before.
Oh gosh.
Why would we're repeating?
Yeah, we're
epithets?
repeating.
Oh,
because I
no.
have zero faith in you guys. And you
I
guys need
still
a win.
won't get it. I still won't get it.
Honed.
Yone.
No. Not
No.
Is
Yone.
it Yasuo?
No.
Not Yasuo.
No.
Honed.
Honed? Master Yi?
Yeah. Which
Okay.
one?
There you go.
It's one of the new ones, right?
No.
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 Oh.
I shouldn't even give you an affirmative until you tell me the card.
It's not the set one green one. It might be, and we're just dumb. No, is the set one green one?
No.
Your answer. I'm waiting for you to finish your answer before. Okay. It is the set one orange Yi.
Yep. Orangey.
Yes.
Orangey.
I knew that one.
All right, we did it. We're doing good at this one. The last one, the hardest one, is entrancing.
Entrancing? Oh.
Entrancing.
Entrancing.
New set, right? I don't think this is one from older sets.
Who knows? Could be any of the three.
Is it No, it's not Nami. It's not Nami. It's
No, we already. It's got who's like hypnotizing creature, something like that. Entrancing.
or a dancer, right? Which is why I thought it could be
that's
Aurelia,
true.
but
It's
I
not
don't think it's
Aurelia.
Aurelia either, because Aurelia is fervent and what's the other Aurelia?
Graceful.
Yeah.
Is it Diana?
Nope.
Enchanting. It's not. Well, Ari, right, with charm comes to mind, but I don't think
Yeah.
either of our Aris are that.
It's not Sona.
I mean,
I
Teddy
don't-
was pretty. Teddy's line of thought was getting there pretty close.
Okay.
pretty
Ari, then
sure-
Sona.
Well, no, your line of thought
Oh,
earlier
okay.
that was like what creature hypnotizes or something like that, right? Like that's a
Yeah,
pretty.
but it
close
has
line
to
of-
be. But it
Done
has to be.
something.
Oh, is it
What-
Lilia?
No, not Lilia.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not Vex.
Because
What
Lilia
is-
puts people to sleep. So I was like, oh,
She does.
maybe it's
That
like,
is fair.
like
Yeah, that's a
a
good- that's a good one. That's a good
hypnotize.
one.
What
No.
card stun? Is it a green card?
Nope. I'll give you the order. Is that what they're called? No, what are they called? Domain. It is a
Domain,
chaos
yes.
card.
Chaos, so purple.
V-
It's not Vex. Vex is
I give
Cheers,
up.
no.
I don't
Give
know.
it
this
Yeah,
up.
one.
I have no idea.
I don't know
It's
this one.
Evelyn.
Oh gosh.
I
Why
did-
possibly did I not get that? That one annoys the hell out of me. I just forgot that Evelyn was a card in the set.
I mean, Teddy was really like I thought
Yeah.
when Teddy I was like, oh my
No,
gosh, that's gonna
100%.
spark it.
I just forgot that she was in the set entirely because I was thinking Ari. I was like, okay, who else has charms? Like, there's just somebody in here, but dang.
And her effect
unfortunate.
is a charm too.
It
It's
is a charm.
true.
Yeah,
It's true.
That's really
All
good.
right. Well,
man, we failed.
to wrap up the episode, we are just going to quickly take a look at a little set 3 stuff. Before we talk about this, obviously, these are city championships. So these are best of 1, and then the championship round being best of 3. So these are deck lists you can take with a grain of salt. These are results you can take with a grain of salt. These are comparatively to our set champs, but we'll have more players in them. But we have, out of 10 city championships, I don't know if it's all this past weekend, I believe it was, though. We have 3 Fiora winning, Lilia, Master Yi, Rengar, Sivir, Azir, Annie, and Set winning 1 each. Thoughts on that first before we take a look at these deck lists, these results being kind of all over the place and no real like we don't see Kai'Sa, we don't see Draven. Aurelia probably isn't going to be seen in these, but like Kai'Sa and Draven, I kind of expected to see maybe win one of these. But thoughts before we kind of look at the deck lists?
Yeah, I think set 3 is just going to be like a big, because how much time have they had to get cards?
Yeah,
That's another question. I don't actually know that answer at the moment.
I think it's been like 2 or 3 weeks.
That's not a lot of time for like your average person who doesn't have an immediate like regional around the corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Card game
So,
culture in Asia is also very different than card game culture in the West, where a lot of the time card games in Asia, Japan specifically, but it's become this way in China from what I've seen as well, is people just getting off work and going and playing a card game, like socially, as their after work activity and then going home. So those kind of players are not going to have access to all of the cards immediately.
yeah, and a lot of these are just playing archetypes that we've already known and are already like known archetypes. So nothing here is like really shaking up anything. They're just like adding set 3 cards into what they already have. It looks like if we were to take the moment from a new set dropping and like your old deck, like that moment as you're building the deck is what some of these look like. Which just looks like a card collection thing. The Rengars and Lilias are the only like new set stuff that we're seeing. The Lilia was playing a much more controlled version of Lilia, which is not the direction I expect her to take. And the Rengar looked like pretty much the direction the Rengar is going to take, with some strange cards added in, like seals. Seals are a very big question mark whenever you see a seal, especially in a deck that doesn't traditionally have that much card draw. Seals look very sketchy. I know he has the beans to try to balance that out a bit, and he has like Nidalee and he has Kai'Sa, but I don't know if those are really helping to offset the seal cost as much as you want them to be.
Those are all conditional card draw.
Yeah,
instead
exactly.
of consistent card draw. Yeah.
Nidalee is like not very good, as I've been
I agree.
with it.
Every time I've tried to play Nidalee, it has felt very subpar to me.
Yeah.
And even like when I'm like, okay, if I just conceptualize her as a 3/1 4-mana combat trick, I like that's the best way I can visualize her. But is that good? 3/1 4? No, not really.
Just in practice, it hasn't been great. Like the body is worth something for sure, but you're almost never playing her as the body unless you have to, like you are actually required to.
Yeah.
Just not great.
I think these lists overall are not as refined as probably they will be. And we talked about it, like especially the card culture over there. People aren't going to have all the cards they may not have tested immediately. I'm not sure when their first big event is over there for set 3, probably as soonish. But I would expect these deck lists to get more refined as time goes on. I know we were talking about before, the unchecked power in the main board for Lilia is
three of them things.
Nothing that we expected. And Sprite Queen is being played, which none of us play in our Lilia deck list. I think this is just a complete reverse on what all 3 of us are looking for to do when we're playing Lilia.
Well, it's a different archetype.
This archetype.
No, I know.
Not like the craziest thing you'd be doing with Lilia. This archetype makes sense for Lilia because her legend has the ability to make a guide. That being said, if we're buying into that aspect of Lilia, why am I running 2 drops at all?
Yep.
Yeah. That's actually my biggest issue with the list. Is not even the unchecks or the Sprite Queens. It's like, why do we have 2 drops if we're doing this? It's like, what is actually the goal here? If we're going for a control version, we should play the control version. We can put in Vile Maws. We can go for that top end and just use our legend to get through the early game.
Plundering Poro makes sense. I would still play Plundering Poro in control because it offsets your cost, right? So while you're fighting through your mid game, you can then conserve more energy to then play your bigger threats later into the game. But that's just a gold generation thing. If there was another card that generated gold for about that, I'd be good with that.
You can play Cask.
I love Cask. I think that thing is so cool. It's not going to see play unless it has a very specific deck list, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think any more deck lists you guys wanted to highlight here? If you guys do want to look at these more in detail, Runes and Rift has them on their Twitter. They just posted this for you guys listening a few days ago. But yeah, any other thoughts?
I like the Annie one, playing with Heedless Resurrection.
Yeah.
I put this card as like one of my 5-star cards, and it like hasn't hit yet, but I think it will. I fully expect this card to hit. This card just reads broken, so it starts here.
Saw that Jin too.
I forgot what this card
The
does,
4-cost red
we're gonna
Jin.
look it up live.
That
on
thing is
Twitter.
very good, but we
We're gonna
haven't
look up
seen it.
Heedless
pop off yet.
Resurrection.
I forgot what it did.
You forgot what it. Oh, this is
Is
the
it
card
just
that everyone thinks
kill
is
a
going to
friendly
break
unit?
Brynir.
Yeah,
Hey,
I don't even think it's necessarily.
right. Is this the Brynir flicker thing?
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even think it's for Bryn here.
I don't either.
I think this
but-
card is just broken.
Yeah.
And whether it's broken now or it's broken next set, it doesn't matter. This card is a ticking time bomb. It will be broken at some point. I think it's now, for what it's worth. I think it will be broken now. But
Does it read banish the first
No.
creature? What does
No.
it read? Does it
It
kill the
kills.
first
Kills it.
creature? Oh, great. That's even worse. Okay. So we kill our Forerunner, we flicker our Brynir, or we kill our Forerunner, we flicker Ezreal, or Kaisa accelerated. Like, yeah, that card's just insane.
This
it's
card's
gonna be very good.
nutty.
It's so good.
And because we get play effects when played from
Yeah.
things like this too, it's just crazy. Reaction speed fizz with this is also just beautiful.
I actually would like to see Red Rek'Sai in this deck list with Heedless Resurrection, and then you can accelerate the card you're playing off of Heedless Resurrection as well. That could go pretty hard.
Sure, yeah,
Play
I
it
think
with
there's definitely
like
definitely a world where you can go like pretty low to the ground with this.
Mhm.
The big
because you have Zon
problem-
Warrens, right? Say you have like a Vi in your hand, and you
Yeah.
discard the Vi, then you have Heedless Resurrection is another copy of Vi Ride the Winds, while
Yeah.
Vi is in your yard the entire time, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Like,
Yeah, I think this card's sick. The biggest problem for it right now is that like finding a good target for the fizz. It's like just Ezreal, and Ezreal's like not my favorite card to play in a deck like this. Because if we want to go fast, Ezreal's not really helping us go fast. It is card generation, but yeah. The fizz Ezreal being the same cost is like the best value to get for him.
mhm.
Is that good enough? Maybe. I think it still could be, but I'd rather see something more tempo oriented in that slot. Like we've seen people try to play it with Phoenix because Phoenix triggers off of the Heedless too. So if you kill whatever, you can get back your Phoenix with it too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we do see this Annie as well going in the direction of just play one of every interaction, and then they have to guess which one you have, right? Because we have like the one abandon, the one hard bargain, the one gust, one long sword. It's just like all the 2-mana trick stuff that you can do. It's just playing one copy of each, make them play around everything. Which fair enough.
Yep. All right. Well, that is all we had for this week's episode. We appreciate you guys all listening. I will be back next week to talk about Atlanta and also talk about sealed stuff, as next week is pre-rifts are starting. Unleashed is nearly here, which is kind of crazy to think that we're going to have a set 2 regional and then switch right over out of it. But yeah, Gail, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter with Gale Wins with 2 S's, and maybe YouTube whenever I post another video there, probably after Atlanta.
And Eli, where can everyone find you?
Battle Tested TCG. Shout out Glitched Goober. Won the giveaway this week on Twitter. Absolutely huge. Just go follow them. They're a cool art creator. Has a lot of fun stuff on their various platforms, specifically Etsy. Love their tokens. Check them out. What about you, Teddy?
You guys can find me at Limited Teddy on Twitter and YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at SM Riftbound, on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Super Mega Riftbound. We see you guys all for episode 28 next week.
See you guys.